Alright, yes, before anyone points it out, I am recording this video literally seconds after my last one. Just guess I'm here, and I might as well do it. As I say, no time like the present. This video isn't going to be about Manchester United, but it's going to be about football and the Premier League. And it's an issue that I tweeted about last night, so Saturday, the 7th of March I think. It's about sexism in football. I guess the issue was kind of brought to my attention just listening to a podcast. It was the BBC Woman's Hour. A great podcast, by the way. Well worth the listen. Bring up a lot of different issues. And they did bring up a lot of interesting issues about football, and they talked to different people, or different women in football. And I think it's definitely a problem. Maybe not at the same level as racism and homophobia, just because there's a lack of women in the men's game or in football in general, possibly. But I guess that's a problem in itself, that maybe women don't feel like football's something that they can be part of, or at least not at the same level as men, which is an absolute ridiculous, but it is a society we live in. I think in general women are definitely seen as just sex objects when it comes to football. I think both of these were brought up in the Women's Hours podcast. The two most obvious examples are, I have never been to Bramall Lane, but apparently over the last few months, especially during the period of time that Sheffield United were considering re-signing Ched Evans, there was a lot of chants, and I quote, as she said, yes, Ched, being sung by a minority, it must be said, of Sheffield United fans. The other obvious example is the Chelsea physio. I think there has been many tweets about her. I'm probably saying her name wrong, but Ava Canavero, I'm probably saying that wrong, but I think there's a lot of tweets about, oh, if she was my physio I'd be injured all the time, and lucky John Terry, and again that's another issue I'm not going to get into. I also had a look around YouTube, and it's quite disgusting really, but there's a video on YouTube called Dr. Ava whatever Carverio, I'm saying that wrong, it'd be great if someone correct me on that, versus Arsenal on YouTube, and it has over 476,000 views. It's nearly 500,000 views of just a woman doing her job, and the video is there simply because she's a woman and seen as a sex object. And that's not fair. Women have every right to be doctors or coaches or managers or even players in the professional game. On the Women's Hour they also talked to Caroline Radford, who is the CEO at Mansfield Town. And she was just talking about how I think a lot of people just assumed she got the job because she is now married to one of the head people at the club. I think a lot of people chanted and just assumed that she got such a high profile job at Mansfield simply because she was sleeping with the boss. But clearly that's not the case, because they're married, they have 3 kids. Apparently at games she has been chanted at, "Get your tits out," and I guess that kind of ties in with the "She said yes, Ched" chants at Sheffield United. Like, it is a big problem in the stands at the club, or at all clubs in England, and it needs to be discussed. I guess I can't do much about it, I'm just bringing it to people's attention to get people talked about it, but the Premier League, the FA really need to talk about it. Then again, maybe the Premier League wouldn't be the best place to go, because I think we all heard about the sexist emails that Richard Scudamore sent a good while back now. And I guess the other obvious example I can come up with is about the linesman, or lineswoman, sorry. See, it's just ingrained, you automatically say man instead of woman. What was her name? It was a Massey, or Sian Massey Ellis, I think was her name. She was a lineswoman in some Premier League games. I think a lot of people made a big deal about that, the same way they made a big deal about a second division French side having a female coach. I think it shouldn't be a big deal. But like I said, it's something that it does need to be discussed. Unfortunately, the people who are going to be discussing it are all men. Just a few stats from the podcast again is that a woman called Heather Rabbit, sorry, I'm just all over the place with names today, is the only female board member of the FA. And 6 out of 122 women, or 6 out of 122 members of the FA board, FA council, are female. And the last important stat, I think, is that apparently over 20% of people attending Barclays Premier League games are female. And that is definitely a rise, which is great to see. But I just think if 20% of people who are attending football matches are female, then that number should be more reflected in the amount of high profile board members there are. Really it should be 50-50 female, male, but except it probably won't be, because the men's game is a lot more popular, it's a lot more high profile, and I just don't ever see football having more women in it than men. Just never do. Shouldn't be unrealistic, but I do think it is. But if we could get even 30 or 35% of women to be board members or chairwomen at clubs, it would be great. I mean, you think about all the owners at clubs, they're all male. So I think as a whole, football is not really open to the female population. Like I said, I'm going all over the place now. Sorry about that, but it has improved the women's game lately. I think a lot of that's to do with the US. They're a lot fairer about this, and I think England is slowly but surely following the lead of the United States. It was great to hear that a while back the England women's national team got to play at Wembley. I think that's an important step. I don't think it's not like there's a lot of games at Wembley compared to most grounds in the country. I think every game that the women play should be at Wembley or Old Trafford or the Emirates, or if anything it should be what like the England national team was, the men's national team before Wembley was rebuilt. It'd be great to see the women's team go to all the big grounds around the country. All the grounds I've already mentioned, St James's Park as well, Anfield, and just to spread awareness of the women's game as a whole. And I think with baby steps we can make progress into evening out the imbalance between the men's game and the women's game in terms of popularity, the way people think about it, funding, the amount of people attending games. It will be a very slow process, but I think it's something that needs to be brought up again. I think Manchester United are guilty of this. I think every team in the country, especially the bigger clubs that could easily build extra pitches, an extra stadium, even small stadiums with like 10,000 people, should have women's teams. So that's one thing I'm definitely very disappointed about Manchester United about, that we have no women's team. I think I know Everton have a team, Arsenal have a team, I think I'm right in saying Liverpool have a team. I think all the clubs in England, but especially the big ones, that have the funding for it and could do it easily when you consider the amount of money that's put into transfer fees and wages and CEO wages and everything. There should be more women's teams. At this stage I'm just all over the place and repeating myself, and I think I've said most things I needed to say. So thank you for watching. Please share, because I do think this is a very important issue and needs to be discussed within the general public, and not just in football but society. So cheers.